Hey, in this tutorial we're going to take a look at showing toast notifications using an Ionic 2 mobile application. So this is going to work for both Android and iOS, and it's going to make use of Ionic Framework version 2. As you might be familiar with, or maybe you're not, I also made a tutorial like this using Ionic Framework version 1, but since that's becoming a little more out of date, I figured it would be a good idea to refresh this and do the same using Ionic version 2. So it's not too much different. Most of the difference comes in with the language differences of Angular 2, but it really isn't all that difficult. And we're gonna see that right now. So first, what we want to do is we're going to create a new project on our desktop. So we can say Ionic start example project blank. So we're using the blank template --v2. So before I hit enter, I want to say that you have to be using the Ionic CLI version that supports Ionic 2 applications. If you're not using this version of the CLI, this tag v2 will not be recognized and you won't be able to build Ionic 2 apps. So if you don't have it installed and you don't know how, I recommend you travel to the Ionic Framework website and follow their installation instructions. With that said, go ahead and hit enter. Alright, with the project created on our desktop, we can now navigate into it, and we want to add two platforms. So we want to say Ionic platform add Android. And note, we're also going to add the iOS platform here, but you have to be using a Mac if you want to add this platform. If you're not using a Mac, you cannot add and build for iOS. You'll only be able to do Android. So that's just one of the awesome things that you can do with Mac that you can't do with anything else. So go ahead and add it. Perfect. So if you've seen my other tutorial, maybe you haven't, maybe you have, we're going to be using the same plugin. This is an Apache Cordova plugin, and this plugin is going to allow us to show toast notifications. So to add this plugin, what we want to do is say Cordova plugin add Cordova plugin x toast. We're going to add it in. Perfect. Now I also want to say something else, although not too necessary here because the plugin takes care of it, but iOS has no concept of toast notifications. If you search the iOS documentation for native iOS, you'll see there is no mention anywhere of toast notifications. So this is an Android feature. This is something that works natively for Android, but the developer of this plugin made his own method of showing toast in iOS. So he made a custom plugin and styling that will mimic what Android can do. So just so that way you know, toast notifications, there's no concept of that naturally in iOS. But this plugin will handle it for you, no problem. So with that little thing said, let's go ahead and open that project that we created on our desktop. Everything that we want is inside of the www folder, and we can just open up that full project here. Now we're not actually going to be looking at the index.html file. We're going to be spending all of our time in home.js and home.html. So starting with actually home.js. The first thing that we want to do, and this is a pretty common thing with all of my tutorials that use plugins, is to add a platform. And you'll see why in just a second. So if you go down into the constructor now, and we can say platform in lowercase, and then platform with a capital P. Now we can say this.platform equals platform. And what we're doing here is, if you're familiar with Ionic Framework 1, you'll remember Ionic platform.ready. If you're not familiar with Ionic Framework 1, then in Apache Cordova there's an on-device ready. And both of these, what they do is they make sure that your application is ready before it tries to make use of native plugins. If your device is not ready and it tries to make use of these plugins, it will error out. So by wrapping it, by making use of this platform variable, we're going to first make sure our device is ready so that way there's no errors. So now we can create this function. We're going to call it show toast. We're also going to add some parameters in here. Let's say we want to add a message parameter and a position parameter. Perfect. All right, now like I said, let's make sure that it's ready. So this platform.ready, and then this promise here is going to be when it's ready, we're going to enter here. And now we can make use of that plugin. So we're going to say window.plugins.toast.show. And now we're going to pass in the message that we passed in to the show toast function. We're going to define a length. Let's just say short. There is also long. So I could be mistaken on this. I haven't really done too much looking into it, but I believe long is 5 seconds and short is 3 seconds. But don't quote me on that. Just know that long is going to be longer than short. We're also going to add position. Perfect. All right. So now what we want to do is now we're going to go to the UI because our logic is done. We're basically going to call this function and it's going to show a toast. So erase all this card logic or all of this card stuff. We're going to add some buttons here. So we're going to say button click equals show toast, and we're going to say hello world as our message, and then this one will be shown at the top of the screen. Show top button. All right, so to save some typing, I'm going to duplicate that 2 more times, and this one is going to say center. This one is going to say bottom. Perfect. So we have 3 buttons, and that button will show the toast message in a different part of the screen. So with that done, go back to our terminal here. We want to build our application. But before we build our application, it's important to note if you are using, or if you're viewing this video at the same time that I wrote or made this video, there is a bug in Ionic 2. The bug being if you try to build your application, it will not compile your CSS and fonts automatically. If this video is being seen by you, I don't know, in the future, chances are that the bug has been fixed. I've reported this bug. It's been acknowledged by the Ionic team, and they said that it'll be fixed in a very soon release. So there's a good chance that this has already been fixed by the time you're watching this video, which is no problem. It's you'll notice it right away when you try to build. So if you do notice that your visuals, your UI is a little messed up, then come back and just run the following. So you first want to install Gulp with npm. So after you install Gulp, you can say Gulp Sass and Gulp Fonts, and that will automatically compile these files. So that way, when we run build, it'll be ready for use. But like I said, it could already be fixed, and you won't have to worry about this extra step. So now we can say Ionic build Android. And now we can say ADB install R platforms, Android build, outputs, APK, AndroidDebug.apk, and this will install it to the simulator, which I have in the background here. I'm going to open it. All right, 3 buttons, exactly what I expected. So let's go ahead and give them a try. So I'm going to click top, and it showed it up top. I'm going to show center, and it showed it in the center. So far, so good. So now bottom. Hello world at the bottom. And this works for both Android and iOS, so no worries there. And you can see that it really didn't take too much code. I mean, we just included the plugin, we made sure it was ready, and we called it, and then we made this very simple UI for it. And toast notifications are very useful because it doesn't block the UI when you show them, and they disappear on their own after a certain amount of time. So you may find them incredibly useful in your development life cycle.